Okay, welcome back, everyone. Picking up where we left off. Item number 7, resolution number 2022-28, approving the cost sharing agreement for the urban pavement preservation phase E for the county of Stanislaus and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract. Mr. Royale, are you online? And Councilmember Rhino does have questions. Just want to make sure Mr. Royale is there so we can answer the questions.
Could you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I ask my questions now? Oh, who's not muted?
I'm muted.
Okay. My first question is,
Yes.
the funding for this, is that coming out of the city's portion of Measure L, the same money that we would use for our city streets?
Could you hear me?
I can't.
Council?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. sir.
Okay, yes, yes, it will be a Measure L, correct.
So my question is, are the money for this, for the program with the county,
Mhm.
is that taking away any of the money that we could potentially use for our city streets?
Well, we're helping the county because we have a shared streets between the county and the city. So the county was proposing that they have certain street that they would like to pave within the city right away. And we agreed, we were gonna do these streets anyway, but we can't do them halfway. So we have to share these streets with both county and the city and do them at the same time.
So our portion for these few streets is 230,000.
Correct.
So my question is, we're going to take care of those few streets in conjunction with the county,
Mhm.
but the people who live within the city who are upset because their streets don't look very well, that we're not doing anything about our own city streets and we're spending 230,000 for partnership with the county when that 230,000 could go towards resurfacing some of our own streets.
Yes, we are planning on doing some street improvements using Measure L, Ms. Rhino. We have the pavement preservation project, which will be starting most likely by midsummer. And that would be using a Measure L funds.
Okay, so by earmarking this 230,000 for these few county/city streets, is that going to impact our ability to start taking care of the city streets that people are complaining about?
But half of the street belong to the city. So we are doing half of the improvements. And also you got to consider that we're doing some ADA ramps along that too. So we are improving the ADA ramp issues along these streets and also doing the pavement rehabilitation.
And you're saying that we're going to start ramping up again on our own city streets this summer?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you.
We are planning to do about 5 miles of resurfacing, correct.
Do we have any other questions from the council? Comments? Do we have any comments from the public?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't entirely understand Mr. Sam's comment. Question is $230,000 is being used. Is it used for the city's portion or are we paying for the county portion? I mean, when you go down the middle of Hatch Road over here, between the Mormon Church and Wallen and Payne, the north side of the street belongs to the county. The south side of the street belongs to the city. If you're doing a joint project where you're both paying and for paving that section, are we paying for just ours? Or Ms. Rhino was asking if that money is being spent on other than the city project.
No, we're actually paying for half of the cost. Half of the road belongs to the city, the other half belongs to the county. I mean, it's simple as that. Just we're sharing half of that roadway. Unfortunately, that's how the city was laid out. And we're trying to pay for the half portion of that rehab.
Question, we're paying for our half. So
Yes,
we're using our money for city purposes. Thank you.
yes, yep.
Do we have any other members of the public who would like to make a comment? Members on Zoom?
There's one hand raised, Mayor. John Osgood. Mr. Osgood, I'll unmute your mic.
I think what we need to realize, regardless of the funds, we own half that road. We need to pave gutter to gutter, curb to curb, or we're going to have water infiltration issues. We can't choose to pave our portion later. And the costs associated would go up if we chose to do that, and the county's costs would go up. We all know we pay taxes in the county, so I would approve this agenda item.
Do we have any other members on Zoom?
No other hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay. If there's any other comments from the council, is there a motion?
Move to adopt resolution number 2022-28.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Casey,
Here. Yes.
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Silvera,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
and Mayor Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Moving on to item number 9, resolution number 2022-30, approving a professional service agreement with Municipal Resource Group, LLC, MRG, to provide human resources and risk management consulting services and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. And would you like to have some questions asked to Mr. Terrazza?
I know we have paid for overnight accommodations for the consultant. Is that going to continue with this additional money?
Yes, it will, but we are trying to minimize the use of overnight accommodations, but it is proposed that we use it for that.
And can I ask how far away this consultant lives, that after he comes to work, he can't just drive home?
I believe Mr. Wilson's residence is in Nevada City, so that's a bit of a drive.
And this consultant firm, they can't provide anyone that is within driving distance? I mean, I looked at Municipal Resource Group, and they have a lot of HR people on staff, according to their website.
Mr. Wilson was the only consultant in that group that was available and willing to take the assignment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any of the council members have any questions? Members of the public? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom? I see one hand.
There's one hand raised, Mayor. That's John Osgood. Mr. Osgood, I'll unmute your mic.
Take into consideration, if we're providing lodging for someone, California allows commercial drivers to be on duty 16 hours and driving a total of 12. You know, as a truck driver, I find it very difficult to provide a hotel room for someone that could come here, do 8 hours worth of work and still get home within the same 16 hours I'm expected to be out. I would appreciate if our council took these kinds of things into consideration. If we're providing funds to a business that cannot conduct themselves the way I have to conduct myself in business, we need to find someone else.
Do we have any other members on Zoom that have their hands raised?
No, Mayor, no other hands are raised.
Okay. Motions?
Move to approve resolution 2022-30.
Second? I'll second. Roll call?
Councilmember Casey,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhino,
No.
Vice Mayor Silvera,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein, and Mayor Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, moving on to public hearing. Item number 11. Public hearing to consider final adoption of ordinance number 2022-1071, approving the NDC map 103, adopting new city council district boundaries. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is your fourth and last public hearing regarding the redistricting process. At this hearing, it's anticipated that you will finalize or adopt the ordinance, which will finalize the process. At the last meeting, you did a first reading of the ordinance where you voted 5-0 to adopt map 103 as your final map. So if you move forward with that tonight, approve the ordinance, that will be the map that will be incorporated into the ordinance and will constitute your new districts and be effective for the November 2022 election.
Counselor, is there any questions? Seeing none. The public hearing is now open. Members of the public, any questions? Mr. Warren, Mr. You okay? Zoom, do we have any members on Zoom that have any questions or comments? Any hands raised?
No hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay, the public period section is now closed.
Mayor, before I make a motion, I'd like to make a comment.
Absolutely, sir.
You know, this was a long drawn out process. We had some good participation in it. You know, one thing is I do want to reiterate, you know, the council set forth what we wanted to do as far as getting representation and get some representation in the lack of area we did, which is basically District 2. You know, this is the one map we did adopt. Another one that I think was close, which to give consideration, was Mr. Osgood's. You know, he did an excellent job and put a lot of time in it, but this also accomplishes what he was trying to do and set forth. We just did not dissect too much of the neighborhoods as, you know, was out there. So with that being said, I would like to adopt ordinance number 2022-1071 for approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Casey,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Silvera,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
and Mayor Lopez.
Yes. Good. Okay,
Motion passed 5-0.
thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Moving on to item number 12, public hearing to consider approving a proposal for zoning ordinance text amendment ZOTA to the Mitchell Road Corridor Specific Plan. MRCSP. That would give the city planning commission the authority to approve a main building heights exceeding the current specific plan limit of 35 feet on properties zoned RC regional commercial. And I believe, Christopher, you have a comment, or you have some information for us, actually.
Hi. Hi there. James Michaels with the Planning Division. Just want to give you the council some background information. So as the council is aware, the city had approved the Ceres Gateway Center project located at the southwest corner of Service and Mitchell Roads in February of 2020. For the past 2 years, the project representative has approached staff frequently to discuss potential business users of both phases 1 and 2 for that project. Phase 1 primarily consists of retail development, and phase 2 primarily consists of a hotel development. The property is zoned regional commercial per the Mitchell Road Corridor Specific Plan, and that is the governing document for this area. Now, the Ceres Gateway Center representative recently informed staff that a developer is highly interested in constructing a hotel for the phase 2 portion of the project. However, the desired floor plan for the hotel would be a 4-story building, which may result in an overall height of perhaps 45, maybe 50 feet, thereby exceeding the specific plan allowable height limit of 35 feet. The C2 community commercial zone of this Ceres zoning code is outside the Mitchell Road Corridor Specific Plan area, but it is in many ways substantially similar to the regional commercial zone of this specific plan. And one minor difference would be is that the C2 community commercial zone allows the height of proposed buildings to be regulated through the city's site plan approval process, such that said height of a building shall be approved by the planning commission without a defined height limit. And so after considering the hotel example and other potentially taller commercial structures in the regional commercial zone, staff recommends modifying the current specific plan height standard in the regional commercial zone to be similar to that of the C2 community commercial zone district of the Ceres zoning code. And so at last month's planning commission meeting held on March 21st, staff presented the commission with an amendment to the Mitchell Corridor Specific Plan height standard with added language that gives the city planning commission the authority to allow buildings proposed in the regional commercial zone to exceed the 35-foot height limit. The added language is underlined in green, which can be viewed in the staff report. Essentially, the majority of the language for the current standard would remain unchanged, except that there would be one additional sentence added to the height of structure section to state, quote, main buildings and permitted projections within the RC regional commercial zone may exceed the height limits described above, subject to the approval by the planning commission, unquote. Upon the completion of staff's presentation, the planning commission had no questions on the text amendment and reaffirmed that the text amendment would not only apply to the Ceres Gateway Center project, but it would also apply to all regional commercial zone properties located within the corridor plan. With no other discussion taking place, the commission made a recommendation to council to approve the text amendment by 4-0-1 vote. And they made this recommendation on the basis that the amendment assists in maximizing the southern portion of the corridor area and that it encourages employment generating uses like a hotel to open here in Ceres that may not otherwise exist if the current height restriction remains in place. And 2, the amendment has the potential to attract a mixture of businesses that will want to relocate to Ceres, thereby providing a strong economic base, which will benefit the Ceres community. And so with that said, that concludes staff's presentation.
We're here for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll bring it back to the council if there's any.
I have a question. You know, looking this thing over, you know, with the zoning ordinances, one thing I forgot to ask is with allowing this to go community commercial and the height limit to 35 feet with the planning commission is set forth, does the community commercial set a height limit?
No, it has the same sort of language that the height is approved by approval of the planning commission.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Are you able to hear me?
No, I didn't hear it. Does community commercial set a height limit or I know the project is for between, I think it's 45 and 50 feet, but is there a height limit of, let's say, 60 feet?
In the community commercial zone, no, there is no height limit.
So there is no height limit on a community commercial, but yet the planning commission say, they come back with 75 feet, they can say that's not acceptable?
It's by their directions. So if it's tall enough that they're that they can make findings that it would make an impact, then they can choose to deny a project based on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah. My question is,
Go ahead, Casey.
we're approving this to do away with the 35 feet, the entire Mitchell Road corridor. I understood that we were dealing strictly with the Series Gateway Center project. By voting yes on this, are we extending the height limit in the entire Mitchell corridor area?
Mayor, if I may answer that question. This would only affect the regional commercial zone, which is only at the far southern end of the Mitchell Road corridor area. It includes the Walmart property, Series Gateway, and a few other commercial properties towards the southern end of our city. And this,
He couldn't understand.
this proposal would not change, this proposal would not change all of the Mitchell Road corridor area, only the southern end that is zoned regional commercial, which includes the Walmart property, Series Gateway Center, and a few other commercial properties on the southern end of Mitchell Road.
Mayor, may I say something?
Absolutely.
So since you couldn't hear through our silly system we have going on right now, basically it's not all of the Mitchell Road corridor, it's just the RC portion, which is the southern end of Mitchell Road, basically where the Gateway, the Walmart, I'm not sure how much further it goes up, but it would not be the entire Mitchell Road corridor.
Thank you, Councilmember, for clarifying for Mr. Casey. Do we have any other questions from the council? Okay, now I'll open this up to the public. Members of the public, any questions or comments?
Mayor, I'm happy to share my screen to show a map of the area that the regional commercial zone is. Can you hear me?
Yes, you said you wanted to show the map again? Mr. Yeakley wants to make a comment.
Okay.
There it is. We see the map. Appreciate that.
Okay, so the red areas, there's a couple different zones involved in the red areas, but we're talking about the ones that have RC on them. So
Only RC.
Only RC. The Walmart is where my mouse is right here in the middle of the screen, this rectangle. Series Gateway Center is this triangle.
Yes.
And there's just a couple other RC regional commercial zones. The rest of the Mitchell Road corridor up here is not zoned regional commercial and would not be affected by this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Yeakley.
Yes, I'd like to know, evidently there was some discussion briefly about the height. And of course, this is given to the City Planning Commission for an okay in the future or whatever they decide. But I understand in RC, there's possibly no limit, or if there is, how long could this go before it stops and it just gets higher and higher? Because some places, not in our future maybe, but people after us, these things can can go quite high. They tear them down, rebuild them, add to them, whatever. I think that, personally, when you get that high, it just destroys some of the aesthetics of the city, and then it becomes a big city kind of atmosphere. Yeah, they want more revenue in the city, but I think they can find a different way and keep it at a certain limit and just lock it in and don't let it go any higher. They just need a height limit. It's just, I've seen some places, we've got some along 99 that are 4 or 5 stories. It should stop right there, and they can find some other aesthetic stuff to make it more pleasant to come to instead of seeing some, huge building there. It's kind of corny, but kind of blocking the view of the exit to getting off and stuff. And do we need some accommodations for people? Sure. But I think there's another way to go about it instead of making something high and aesthetically not pleasant to look at. On the other end, if you want something to attract people to the series, right down there somewhere, put about a 30 or 40, with the code now, 40, 50 foot pole with a garrison flag there, attracting people to get off the highway. I guarantee you, if you had an American flag that was huge there, they would pull off and come to Ceres, and they would visit those areas to shop in or stay in a hotel. But the height limit there has to be a height limit that won't continue to go higher.
Thank you. Before we move on to Zoom, Ms. Council Member, Ms. Rhino has a comment actually.
This would be for Mr. Home. The 45 to 50 feet that we're talking about, do we have fire apparatus that can handle that all the way to the top of that height?
Thank you for the question. My understanding is yes. The question was asked earlier today, and we heard from our fire staff. And if Chief Wise is on the line, if he could answer more completely, I welcome that. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. Yeah, our Quinn 18, our platform, our ladder truck, it can reach a height of 101 feet with a 27-foot reach. So yeah, it can definitely reach the height of that building.
Thank you. So
Go ahead.
What you're asking us to approve is the ability for an unlimited height, that there not be any kind of a limit. Is that correct? Or you want it to be 45 to 50 feet?
The proposal is to have the regional commercial zone have no limit. It would mirror and match our existing regulations in the community commercial zone, which currently also has no height limit. It's by approval of the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much. If there's any more comments from the council, I'll move on to Zoom. Actually, before we move on to Zoom, Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had one question, and looking at the map, the Catholic Church, St. Jude's there, is in that RC district, it appears. And I would hate to see a 70-foot building built across the street from there or next to it. So I do think that the final approval of any height requirement should come back to our city council. They should be the final people that look at these things and make their final decision. The overall planning for the whole series lies with the council. You approve the general plan. And so I think something of this magnitude, where you're going to allow a 75-foot or a 65-foot building next to a Catholic church, possibly in the future, I think that final decision should come back to council. I do not think it should be left unlimited. And I don't think it should be left up to the planning commission. Thank you very much.
Councilman Ryan, you have another question?
But under the, what is it, the C2, the final decision lays with the planning commission unless someone appeals that. Is that correct, Mr. Holm?
That is correct. And in the case of an appeal, it would go to the city council.
But otherwise it's planning commission approval.
That is correct.
Okay, we will now take it to Zoom. Is there any hands raised?
Yes, Mr. Osgood's hands raised. I will unmute his mic.
One question that comes to my mind is when we finally have the service road overcrossing and the highway road heights. Does anybody know those? I mean, this is the corner that we're talking about. A developer wants to come in, put in what, a 45-foot building there? What are the roadway heights of those two, the highway there and the future service road overcrossing? So it comes into play when we have Walmart at that end of town, in and out, all the other businesses going into that corner are they're locating there so they can be seen from the highway. We're going to adjust our language to potentially place their businesses out of view, or we need to take that into consideration, right?
Thank you very much. Councilman Rhino?
Mr. Osgood made me think of another question. So say, Walmart's there, they have their sign up. Well, then across the street, because it's RC and now we've said unlimited height. I mean, it's not going to necessarily happen there, maybe kitty corner or something. But what if a 50-foot or 60-foot hotel goes in there? Now you can't see, any of the surrounding businesses that have put their signs up. You can't see those now. So then what does that mean? That they're all going to come back. They're going to ask for taller signs, but it's going to cost existing businesses a lot of money to now have a new pole sign or whatever it's called put in place. I think we should consider that as well.
I have a comment in the Gateway Center approval back on the Planning Commission days. The sign issue came up and we extended the sign height to what you could envision, similar to the signs at Monte Vista Crossings. So those sign approvals have already been done in the Gateway project.
But what about places like Farmer Boys or the AMPM that are already there that have their signs?
They would, like anybody else, be able to petition to put a taller sign. But expect in the Gateway Center along 99 somewhere in that center, a sign that looks like the ones you see at Monte Vista Crossings, about that same height. That was approved a year and a half ago. And those businesses all will have the ability to put their signage on that big sign, not just the ones in the Gateway Center. Similar to Monte Vista Crossings, where you'll see Target signs, even though they're not next to the freeway. Very similar to that.
Okay, let's bring it back to any other hands that were raised on Zoom.
We have to just find out.
Can we possibly? Never mind. We're good. So was there any hands raised? Okay. The public period is now closed. Bring this back to council for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance number 2022-1072.
Second? Roll call?
And then for clarification, that was just introducing ordinance.
This is just introducing the ordinance. It's not an actual motion for approval.
Introduction of
The ordinance,
Come back for second reading. Right. So that roll call I can call. Councilmember Casey,
No,
Councilmember Rhino,
No,
Vice Mayor Silvera,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
No.
and Mayor Lopez.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Mayor, if I may ask a question,
Absolutely.
would it be possible to get some council direction on whether or not a defined limit, a height limit instead of undefined, say 50 feet height limit would be something that I could bring back through the process? Or is this?
Let me ask you a question. What is the proposed height of that actual?
Between 45,
the
between 45,
hotel?
sorry, between 45 and 50 feet tall.
Okay, for that particular hotel. So would the council be interested in just approving that particular specific hotel's height? But bringing this back, you can't do that?
I think we should avoid, I think we should avoid putting in terms of a specific hotel or linking it specifically to that hotel, but
Okay.
as an example, that's the height of that hotel.
Okay, well, I guess, yeah, so your question to the council is there a limit to that the council has? Specific type, is there? No,
Well, if I may, Mayor,
absolutely.
you know, I have no thought as far as specific height. What I sat here and listened to was the pros and cons. And my concern would be the height, blocking and impeding on the Walmart Gateway Center signage. You know, I would like to see, you know, I guess if it's going to impede on the sign and then sort of set that, you know, do we really need a 4-story in the city of Syria? You know, I would like to do a little bit more investigation and look at, you know, a few of those that are off of Monte Vista, in the Monte Vista crossing area, have a little bit more, be able to look at, you know, the aesthetics and the height and the impacts it has there. And, you know, we got this packet on, or I got it on Thursday, but I wasn't available to see it until Sunday, you know, to see what the impacts would be. So I would like to look at things like that and have a little bit more consideration, you know, than just, for me, just seeing it one day.
Would it be possible for me to share my screen and show some mock-ups that I've got of this, of some of the heights here? Could I do that?
sure. Mr. Mayor, we voted on this, right? And it's over with, so maybe staff should come back with something different. Is there any need to discuss it further?
Mr. Holm is asking for if we would consider something different at this point. That's clearly his question. Whether a maximum height, we'd be interested in that. My question to those that voted no is your option to unlimited height, or is it to this planning commission approving this? Or is your question and concern that the city council should be approving this, not the planning commission and or a height limit. Because the fact that the planning commission can say no at any time, basically, in theory, is a height limit. So what would create a no vote to this? That's just my question for those that voted no. Which part of it or all of it created that no vote in your mind?
Any additional comments? I know that.
Well, I believe I gave my reason for the no vote was the blockage of the signage of, down the road. Not knowing exactly where this building is going to be located, different things like that. I mean, just seeing this on paper
And just say we're gonna do it.
just say we're going to do it, and all of a sudden it's in the corner
Instead of,
instead of,
setback. I mean, the reason I said no was.
the reason I said no was
to see where,
to see where,
where's that on that map.
Anybody else? Just no with no explanation? Because I think the city needs some guidance. That's what Christopher is asking for. What's the guidance? If it's no, then what's the next move? Because I think we all agree that a hotel on that side of town is needed. And the revenue from hotels, taxes is wonderful. So what is it? What's the direction, guys? Give them some direction.
Mhm.
Any questions?
We just can't continue to have no votes with no guidance for
Also,
the map.
I think when we had the discussion, I said what my concerns were before I voted no.
So what would you like for them to do now then? Not put a hotel there? What's the direction for the city staff now?
If I might, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Alex.
if at the pleasure of the council, if we could, I think as the city attorney suggested, postponing the hearing.
Continue the public hearing.
Continuing the hearing, and give staff the opportunity to look at the signage issue, and look at potential, and provide the council some more information on whether or not signage for other businesses in the area would be obscured. If we could develop that information, bring it back for you as the council, that's one option. And if you'd like, again, at the pleasure of the council, we could certainly do that.
Well, as of right now, that's the only option that's been presented, so we probably should do that. And remember, community commercial already has these designations, so we might want to look at that too.
well, Alex,
Just a second, Mr. Mayor, we're having some communication problems.
I'm open to that. And, I gave you, the reason why I voted no was to like to see where the hotel is situated in the map and be able to, look at other things that are gonna be comparable and what it's gonna be as far as, out of place or things, of that nature. I mean, I'll be glad to talk to Christopher and tell him what some of my concerns are. And, like the city attorney said, I'm open to coming back.
Okay, so if we are open to coming back and further discuss this item, let's get a motion to extend this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to extend the public hearing to a later date.
We do need a date.
Pardon?
We do need a specific date.
I don't have a calendar right here in front of me.
Time do you need, maybe
Any recommendations for a date?
Any recommendations
25th is
for a
our
date?
next meeting.
25th is the next meeting.
Can we do
FYI,
the
everybody,
meeting after that? Since
everybody's
we,
mics are open.
25th, we were gonna, or the 28th, we're supposed to have River Oaks.
Yes, good point.
Let's schedule for May 9th.
Yes.
May 9th would be
I'd
fine
recommend
for
May 9th.
me. So I'll make a motion to extend this to the May 9th meeting.
Second. Roll call. Just second.
Councilmember Casey,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Silvera,
Yes,
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
and Mayor Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on, there is no new business discussions. Is there any council member referrals?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a small report.
Referrals first. Referrals first, and then move on to reports. You wait. That sounds good. Okay, so there's no referrals. Don't have a report, but I just want to say that this is Diane's last meeting. And I want to thank you personally for everything that you've done for the city and everything that you've done and accomplished for the city council as long as I've been here. I really do appreciate everything that you have done, your expertise, your kindness, your willingness to work with everyone, and always keeping us intact, especially when we have issues like this here today. You thought this was going to be an easy meeting, but let me just tell you, it don't get no easier from here, but you have the power and the strength to do anything that you want. And you should never stop. Keep moving forward. Thank you, Diane. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council members? Yes, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, the report I have is about the cleanup that we have going on here in Ceres. I think it's a great deal. You know, I was elected, my term's only 467 days long, and I've been here for 203 days, and it seems like we finally have started something, and it's a good thing. It's a bad thing that it's taken so long to get started, and I hope that we continue with that. Another issue, I think, Mr. Mayor, your newsletter for March, very informative. I compliment you on putting that together. The only thing that was difficult for me to understand, although we've redone our webpage, and that's a pretty good job, it was difficult for me to find it on the webpage. It was very easy for me to find it on your Facebook page, Mayor Re-election Facebook page. It was a shame that it wasn't more readily available on the city page. Again, I compliment you for the information. It's a shame that the way it was spread out to the community. And as was mentioned earlier about the openings for the planning commission, I think that's one area that our city needs to continue to work on, is communicating with the public, because we may forget that we all work for them. We as the city council kind of act as a board of directors, and you as staff members, that's who we work for. We need to improve our communication, but again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember. Anyone else?
after the election in November of 2020, I anticipated there would be changes. I've always believed members of the council should be held to a higher standard. So I was surprised to learn that a newly seated council member was in arrears on his city utility bill and had been for months. If this individual is still in arrears, he should be treated the same way as all citizens when the city starts shutting off delinquent accounts next month. I was also surprised the first time I received a text from Councilmember Silvera criticizing me for asking a former city manager questions. Shouldn't all of the council be asking staff questions? I thought he was attempting to mentor me, but his any words were, feel free to respond or not, which was definitely not a mentoring comment. I started hearing from community members about code enforcement, AVA issues, homelessness, and their feeling that the city has stopped caring about the look of our community. In fact, I was getting more complaints than the entire 8.5 years I've been on the council. These citizens were frustrated. They had either reached out to the mayor or filed a report online with no response. This past November, I received a complaint from someone on Pleasant Avenue regarding a multifamily complex that continually had an overflowing dumpster at the front of the property. She said she had first emailed the mayor in July and nothing was done. In fact, the mayor stopped responding to her emails. Although this wasn't in my district, I felt compelled to see what I could do since the District 4 seat was vacant. The previous public works director said his staff would send the property owner a letter advising them that the dumpster needed to be in an enclosed area. I assumed this happened, so I was surprised on January 2nd when the complainant sent me another note with pictures that the dumpster was still in front and overflowing as usual. After many emails with staff, I was advised that a trash enclosure was a condition of the project, and even though it was approved some time ago, the condition stayed with the property. I thought we were headed in the right direction until I received another email from staff stating that they believed it would cost $20,000 to build said trash enclosure. And finally, during one of Mr. Terrazza's weekly updates, the council was told that staff had decided that the property owner would be allowed to use toters instead of the required trash enclosure. That would be 14 toters. I pointed out the issue with the toters would most likely be that they would not be kept out of sight. I was told it was a work in progress and staff would monitor. Since we are short-staffed, I knew this wasn't possible. I was receiving so many conflicting updates that I started driving by the property a few days after garbage collection, and my concerns were verified. Not all of the toters were out of sight as required by city ordinance. I continue to notify the city manager. What concerns me the most is why an interim city manager unilaterally decided not to enforce a condition that was placed on the property. That should be a concern of everyone who is sitting on this dais. During the same period, I drove down a portion of Hackett that was in the unrepresented District 4 boundaries. I was shocked to see a property that had a burned out RV near the roadway, another RV in the middle of the property, numerous junk vehicles, and garbage as far as the eye could see. I wondered how this property could have missed code enforcement's eyes. I sent pictures to the city manager. About a week later, someone posted about the property on social media and said they had been trying for a long time to get the city involved and the city had done nothing. I will say that the interim city manager took the issue seriously and arranged to have most of the front of the property cleaned up. I say most because the RV and some junky cars remained. I was also told by someone that the city was going to allow the tenants to stay in the RV and had told them that if there was anything they wanted saved in the front, that they should move it to the backyard. The tenant said, okay, as long as the city stayed out of the backyard. When I asked for updates, I was told different things, but one caught my attention. The code enforcement officer was going by weekly and talking to the individuals to be sure things were progressing. So I was surprised when I did my weekly drive-by, and now there was an additional fifth wheel that looked like someone was living in it. To this day, the backyard is full of piles of stuff, and there are still junked cars on the property. Why hasn't this been cleaned up? At some point, instead of talking with the people, code enforcement should have started an abatement process on this property. Keep in mind also that in the ARPA funding request staff report, it was mentioned that the same code enforcement officer should be reclassified to supervisor. I think the supervisor needs to be someone who is fully aware of the process. And while Chief Collins has been very receptive in addressing issues, code enforcement needs a major overhaul, not just more bodies. The chief is busy with the cop shop, and code enforcement needs a dedicated working supervisor that is fully versed in code enforcement. Somewhere during this time, I was embarrassed to witness Vice Mayor Silvera yelling at a community member who was attempting to get his unanswered questions answered. And also having another community member read an email he received from the mayor telling them not to disrespect his staff. Yet the mayor allowed Mr. Osgood to disrespect staff on more than one occasion and said nothing. And yet here then came another chastising message to me from Vice Mayor Silvera. This time he accused me of berating staff and creating a hostile work environment. I have never spoken to anyone the way he has to community members, and I certainly haven't cussed and stomped off the dais when I have not liked a decision my fellow council members have made, which Vice Mayor Silvera did. I believe staff should be held accountable just as I am being held accountable by the community. During the struggles with getting these properties in compliance, I noticed the pallet yard that is very visible from Highway 99 appearing to grow. I sent staff an email and was advised a conditional use permit was required and that they didn't have one. I followed up and was told that now they hired someone to clean it up. I continued to follow up and supposedly now they were going to get a conditional use permit. Again, I followed up and now the fire marshal had done a quick inspection and found many violations, including OSHA violations, and that they intended to do a more thorough follow-up the next day, and the code enforcement officer planned to be there as well. That was weeks ago, and yet it appears pallets are still arriving. All of these things, plus more that I haven't mentioned, started affecting my health to the point that my loved ones were very concerned. I finally realized that they were right when they said I could not fix all that is wrong in this organization and that there are 4 other council members. I have made the decision that my health is more important than my seat on the council, therefore I resign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quickly in regard to the Leaf and Limb program, want to remind folks in the community, as I think maybe it was Mr. Warren or Yeakley mentioned earlier, that that program ended January 9th. So please use your green toters for your green waste. And also another comment earlier today that city staff is now doing pickup of leaf and limbs and debris piles. And pleased to report, well, maybe please, maybe not, that the crews picked up 59 piles today, in addition to 27 piles last Wednesday. So I think that's progress. But again, please use your green cart if you're looking to dispose of leaves and limbs and not put them out on your put them out on the street at this point. Happy to report, and I think Mr. Recreation Manager will speak a little bit to it. Had a successful egg scavenger hunt this weekend. And Chief Collins, I'm not sure if you were going to report on Coffee with the Cop, but I understand that was successful as well. And do want to remind folks that Love Series will be occurring April 30th. So please sign up for a project on April 30th. And please sign up for a project on April 30th. That's all I have this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alex. I really do appreciate that report. Moving on to City Attorney. Any comments, sir? Okay. Department heads, is there any comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I just wanted to report on Coffee with a Cop. This was our first time we had it on a Saturday, and we had a constant flow of people coming in, had good conversations. It was a great turnout, and we look to do it on the weekend again, as well as during the week at different locations throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Mayor, City Council, Joey Chavez, Recreation Manager. Just want to inform you with our event over the weekend, yesterday on Sunday, very successful. First one putting it on. I want to put a big thanks out to to Mayor Lopez, Vice Mayor Severa for helping out the front table, handing out goodie bags to each families that came across. We estimated about 505 children that came through, and with a total with their families, grandparents, and everyone else, around 1,300 that came to the event. Very successful. We're already thinking about what we can do for next year. What we heard in the line a lot was thank you very much. And then also them, hearing in the background, this has never happened in the series before. So we learned a lot from yesterday, but it was great. It was a great event for our first one, and look forward for doing the next one. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Joey. I appreciate that. And nobody's raising their hand. I can't see Diane. Are we good? Okay. Sounds good. Moving on to county supervisors. Are they here? Not. Okay. What was that? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we will now adjourn this meeting and go to closed session for a conference with the city attorney regarding liability claim. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak in regards to the closed session item? Anybody on Zoom? After the closed session, the city attorney will return to report out. This meeting is adjourned. Okay.
Regarding the closed session item liability claim, the council voted 5-0 to settle the Madrigal versus City matter. 4-0, excuse me.